I was dying 2 years ago, year and a half ago. I didn't have a lot of time left, measured perhaps in terms of months. I was first diagnosed with congestive heart failure about 10 or 12 years ago. I became progressively less active. I kind of stopped running and I started walking, and then I didn't do as much walking. About 2 years ago, I realized that I probably wasn't going to get any better, that some other type of intervention was going to be necessary. I'd been having trouble sleeping. My lungs had been filling up. I awakened my wife about 1:30 in the morning, and I said, "You need to call the EMTs because I can't breathe." Within a few minutes, the local EMTs were in my bedroom loading me on a gurney and checking my vitals, and within 15 or 20 minutes, I was at the local emergency room. I'm a person who survived a year of combat and a few other close calls and near misses. I had a hard time accepting the fact that I had a health problem that I couldn't overcome with the help of my doctors. It was something where I felt like I can work through this. If they just change my meds a little bit, I will have an easier time. I will get healthy again. I was not correct in that. I was kidding myself. It wasn't going to happen. My electrophysiologist referred us to Shands, and that's when we first started learning about an LVAD. The thought of somebody opening my chest and putting a machine in there to keep me alive was a difficult idea to accept, and it took a while. I saw videos of other patients and saw how they had recovered, and I began to think, a transplant is probably not in the offing for me. It's not an option. That my hope is an LVAD. There were at that point some publicity about a well-known public figure that had an LVAD and seemed to be doing okay, and that's when our mind started opening up to that as an option.
I actually was excited because it was something that had been in existence for a while. It was proven. I knew that Thoratec had an LVAD that was FDA approved. I immediately wanted Reese to make an appointment to go forward with it.
The effect that the LVAD implant has had on my life is monumental. My life has been very active, and increasingly so since the implantation that I got a year and a half ago. I operated a recruiting firm for 10 years. Now I volunteer my time. We teach interviewing skills, networking, resume writing, and we also provide a form of a support group. I'm involved with several men's groups. There's a bi-weekly luncheon of men that meet in a restaurant, and we generally have a good time, give each other a hard time. When I work out, I feel a lot better. I've always liked that kind of exercise, and I have really no limitations in terms of what I can do. Things like raking leaves and pulling Spanish moss out of the trees, which I've done in the last few days. I could not have done that before. Now, it's work, but it's great to work up a sweat. We flew to Arizona recently, the first time we'd been in an airplane, and that turned out to be easier than I expected also. And I couldn't go through normal screening. I had to get the pat down, and that was not a problem. We carried our equipment on board with us. We kept it in our possession at all times, and it was just like any other carry-on luggage, really. I have a huge amount of confidence in the item that's in my chest and the other equipment that I wear. I've had no problems of any kind having to do with equipment. Anything that has been untoward was probably something I either forgot to do or wasn't prepared for, and I've learned. There's a little bit of a learning curve. I believe I've been given many additional years of life that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. The implantation has enabled me to get to know my grandkids, who are still very young, but now there's a chance they'll remember who I am.
We have a very full life. He's very involved. It's almost as if he never had the heart difficulties or problems.
The 50-year college reunion is a big milestone. My particular college makes a big deal out of it because of its own history. It's just great to see people that many of whom I haven't seen in 50 years. It's a beautiful campus, as you can see. It's a very historic place, a very wonderful institution of higher learning. This has been just an unbelievable experience. I'm just happy to be alive to be here. people have a hard time believing that I have any illness of any kind whatsoever, because I think I feel as good or, look pretty healthy as anybody else here. So it's like nothing ever happened in a way. And it's a special milestone for me personally.
My life has changed so much. I couldn't breathe and walk at the same time. I was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy in 1985. Learning about the diagnosis was really hard. Being 20, you think you're just going to live forever. You think you're immortal. And so it was really hard to hear about that. I was on so many medicines and felt very weak and sick all the time. Sometimes the cure is worse than the sickness. I actually heard about the HeartMate because my doctor had told me about it when I went to him. We had talked about a heart transplant, and that was one of the alternatives. It was wonderful to know that there was something other than dying. When we had talked about a transplant back in '97, it was either you got a heart transplant or you died. I made the decision when my doctor said we were offered a heart, but they were worried about whether it would actually be good for me, and that the HeartMate might help my body build back up and make it better for when I do get a heart transplant. My expectations were with the HeartMate that it was just going to get me by. Well, it actually exceeded my expectations more than I can ever explain. After about the first month, that's when I started traveling and said, hey, I feel good. If I feel good, I'm going to go and live now. The way I feel now with the HeartMate has changed my perspective on everything. Because when you just exist for so long, wondering if you're going to wake up in the morning, and then you go from that to, hey, I'm going to Las Vegas. It's so different, and I'm enjoying it.
Hey, Marcia, it's Christy.
I really wanted to get back out and start working again. I'm an information associate. I run around, I get blood. I have to go all over the hospital. So it's a lot of walking. It's not just mental, it's actually physical too. I work 12-hour shifts. I enjoy the work. I go to Central Supply and pick up things that we need. I do a lot of the charting. I'm a gopher. When I wake up in the morning, I don't think of it as I have to get up and live with the HeartMate or anything. I think of, oh yay, I got to get up and I have so many different things to do. I pretty much have such a normal life. I shop, I cook, I clean, I have to do my own laundry, and I do just normal things. Living on my own, I've always taken care of my equipment. I've always taken care of everything myself.
I think it's just a miracle that they can, do the things they do now.
I talk to patients that are thinking about having a HeartMate.
Up there where we live, the power goes out a lot.
Right. You know what I would do if I lived out in the country? I'd get me a little generator for the battery part. People want to know about what it's like to live with it, what they can do afterwards.
Now, once you get all this done, are you able to do stuff like go get your groceries and put them in your buggy and stuff like that?
Yes. Yeah. With the HeartMate, since you start feeling better and everything, boys become interesting again. And so I'm actually dating someone, and I have dated off and on, but I'm dating someone right now that has a HeartMate also.
Right before I was implanted, I could barely move off the couch. I was almost bedridden, and then I was implanted with the HeartMate in January of 2011. And ever since then, I've just been getting better. I met Christy, who is another HeartMate patient, actually in the chat room on Facebook, and we just met and kind of hooked up and blossomed from there, and we've been together almost a year now, and it's just we do things together, we appreciate things together, and we have been through many of the same things, so we kind of know where the other is coming from. It's just a real good thing.
I think this relationship is different just because we understand, things that maybe other people don't. And so it is a very good relationship. We use each other's equipment. I mean, we share batteries, and he'll carry my batteries for me instead of like a boy in school carrying your books. He actually carries my batteries. We go to the movies, we go to the casinos, just things like everybody else does.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
All right, how are you?
We go out to dinner, and there's a lake here by the house where we go walking. We go geocaching. I think we just try to do as much as we can.
I'm getting to travel more, and I'm going back to school, and I plan on going back to work. I just see a bright future ahead.
I'm not actively seeking a heart right now because of the fact that, with the HeartMate, my life is so good. I'm gonna stay with the HeartMate just as long as I can because my life is so much better than it has been in such a long time. I can't see any sense in changing it. For so long I didn't have anything. And so now, I have a life and work and someone that I care very much about, and my family and my friends, because, I was cut off from everything for so long because when you're sick, you just don't care. I would make the same decision 1,000,000 times over because the time that the HeartMate has given me that I wouldn't have had is the most precious time, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
I'm the pastor of Pilgrim Valley Missionary Baptist Church here in Little Rock on Wolf Street. I've been there for 31 years now. About 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with heart failure, and it was congestive heart failure, enlarged heart not putting out very much at rest. And it was a tough thing to live with because of all the inconveniences. As pastor, it limited my preaching. It limited my ability to walk in the church, walking from one side of the church to the other. I would stop and let older people go past me because I was moving so slow. It limited my ability to walk the community and witnessing to others. It limited my ability in conferencing with other people because I was constantly coughing and running out of breath and was fatigued. We have a lot of children around the church, and I like to interact with them, so kneeling down to play with them, picking them up and hugging them. All of that was limited by my heart failure. I couldn't play with my grandson like I wanted to. He loves to ride a bicycle, and he always wanted me to ride with him. Had a brand new bicycle and I could make one round around the yard, and then I'd have to stop because I was just totally out of breath. My chest was hurting. Going places with my wife was limited because being able to get out of the car and walk through the store, walking through the grocery store with her, I'd have to lean on the grocery cart in order to be supported in doing that. Other activities around the house, cutting the yard, cut my front yard with a push mower because I like to keep the grass cut with a push mower. I couldn't even do that. I'd make one trip up and then I'd have to stop for 5 minutes and then push the mower back and stop for 5 minutes. It was depressing. I always try to keep a good upbeat about myself, but all of this heart failure kind of got me down at time because I started thinking about what I couldn't do and what I wanted to do. The condition got worse as time went on. Ended up having heart surgery and then having a heart attack, and finally was told that I had about 6 months to live.
We are glad to have him wearing that to keep our pastor in one piece.
They told me I was a prime candidate for a heart transplant, but probably wouldn't live long enough to get it. But they had a device called a bridge device that they could install in my heart, a heart pump that would keep my heart pumping until I could get a heart transplant. Actually, I didn't have a difficult decision in choosing a HeartMate because I like mechanical devices. I thought this was fascinating, and I wanted to see what it could do and how it could help. I knew it would help me do what I wanted to do, not just stay alive, but actually help me to come back to being an active person and to get around. So it was an easy decision for me to choose the HeartMate to help me live.
Ready?
The HeartMate II has lived up to all my expectations.
All right.
I expected it to make life more convenient for me.
All right, here it comes.
And it has done that, and it's a joy. Actually, there have been a lot of unexpected benefits for this, with having this device.
Ooh.
The HeartMate II has brought me closer to my wife in a more personal relationship, because to install this, I spent a month and a half in the hospital, and my wife stayed there with me all the time and working with this system. And we got a chance to talk about a lot of things and to get to know each other a lot better, even though we've been married for a long time.
I've been married for over 30 years, and I learned to take directions well.
One of the greatest things that I can do is stand and deliver a message now for 30 to 45 minutes, where I used to have to cut it back to about 10 minutes and lean on the podium as I was trying to speak. Now I can stand flat-footed and I can move around, and the excitement is back in the deliverance of the message, and that's exciting for the congregation, even though they might think it was better when their sermons were shorter. But it still gives me that ability to do things in the ministry that I once couldn't do because of the heart failure. We have a big occasion coming up for the church this week. It's the 100th year anniversary of the church. It started in 1912. And we wanted to really do something big for the 100-year celebration, not just an ordinary day. So we plan a week of activities for the church. On Saturday, we'll have a picnic on that afternoon from 1 to 3, and we'll have outdoor activities. You'll get a chance to go around and play the games with the children and fellowship with the people.
Yeah, I'm glad to see y'all. Where do y'all live?
But on Sunday morning, we're really expecting a big crowd for this, and I'm looking forward to it with great joy.
It is really, really good to see everybody here today. It's wonderful. Everybody who's here today, raise your hand. All right, great.
I have the energy to go and do all the things that everyone else is doing, and I'm not fatigued like I used to be fatigued. I can even help set the thing up. I can move tables and chairs and be involved with all the activities that they're involved in because the device gives me that ability.
You could just see the progression, how he got stronger. He got stronger, just like a flower that you put water in, and the next minute, you know, he's just up. He's got the energy back. He's him old. He is his old self. We are just happy to have him back.
Okay. All right. 100 years. As little as you think about it, that's a long time for human beings.
Tomorrow is the 100-year anniversary of the church.
But it's nothing to God.
It'll turn 100 years old. But it's also a celebration of my birthday because I will turn 59 years old at that same time, 4:30 in the afternoon to be precise.
Happy birthday, Pastor Phil. Happy birthday to you.
And I'm looking forward to being able to celebrate my 59th birthday with the 100th year birthday of the church.
I was told that I have to make a wish and blow it out. I'm going to make a prayer. that God will forever bless you, Pilgrim Valley Missionary Baptist Church.
When we first talked about the HeartMate, it was presented as a bridge device, and that was something to keep me alive until we got the heart transplant, and I agreed with that. I got the device, and the longer I kept it, the more comfortable I became with it, and I started thinking about what I could do with this device and what I could do with a heart transplant. And I looked at the downside of the heart transplant for me personally, and that is that if I get a heart transplant, I would have to deal with anti-rejection medication for the rest of my life and all of the things that attended that. And the longer I had this, the more comfortable I became with it, so I decided that I would keep this since it is now a destination device. It's not a big clunky thing that I have to be concerned about or ties me down. I can keep this for the rest of my life and enjoy its benefits instead of having to go with a heart transplant. There are people who need this device. There are people who are suffering right now with heart failure, and I know they're concerned about what their next step is going to be. They're looking at heart transplants seriously, and some of them might get the news as I did that you need a heart transplant, but you won't live long enough to get it. So what's their next option? Their next option is the HeartMate II.
Let's see if you can catch with the glove. Good.
The benefits of having it far outweigh any of the inconveniences that are really just temporary, because the more you get used to it, the less inconvenient it becomes. I have a deep sense of gratitude about being given a second chance. I'm truly grateful for what I have today. That's the opportunity to continue not just life, but life with good quality. The opportunity to be able to play catch with my grandson and to ride a bicycle with him and to watch him grow, to be someone important in his life. I'm grateful for every opportunity that I have been given by the Lord through this system to do what He wants me to do.